Hello there. Good day again. It's Asa here. Today I'm gonna talk another topic about something that I think a lot of people probably forgotten about. And it's related to a different game that a lot of people thought we'd be able to defeat or literally, kill off New Genesis for being back then. And I guess if you guys are actually playing New Genesis since like I don't know last year, you probably have heard of a game called Tower of Fantasy. Yeah, you remember the time when, people were actually literally saying, oh, Tower of Fantasy is going to defeat and is going to kill off New Genesis because there is much more content in Tower of Fantasy. And actually is actually much more better game and there is actually end game for you to grind it. And yada yada, a lot of like positive stuff about that game when that game was hyped to like I don't know the sky or something. But hey, come back to 2023. Did anybody actually tell you our fantasy is still a game? Guess not, right? You see, the problem with certain games when you actually claim them to what you want them to be, there is definitely going to be people hating on the low content patches and how everything just feels like very very bare bones and everybody just don't really care about the game that much. But sometimes the opposite also doesn't really make sense as well. It makes much more sense if you also care about like your own free time as well. Imagine if you're like you came back from a tired day of working and you wanted to enjoy just a peaceful time of gaming. Then suddenly this game forces you to do a lot of chores. It asks you to do this daily, do this, and kill this boss like several times, run these instances several times, try to find groups with doing this content for you to do it easier instead of actually soloing the content, and then maybe collect enough resources for you to um, grind and maybe pull for the next best meta character. And unfortunately, because of this whole gacha currency that you require for you to unlock those gameplay characters and gameplay elements, it's just you can't really compete with a game like New Genesis. In comparison at all, like New Genesis don't have content, yes, sure, but you can play the game from zero to finish for free. You don't really need to, pay any money at all, especially in the AC gacha system. It's all just cosmetics. Yes, there is AC support scratch and stuff like that, but those things can be obtained from the player shop for free as well if you know the ways to earn meseta. So that is in the end it's just a non-issue. So being such a free-to-play game, you just realize, hey, this game is pretty free-to-play friendly, and not only that, the dailies and weeklies are very very light on your time. You don't really need to log in and sweat a lot and just trying to complete all these weeklies and dailies perfectly in order to get maximum amount of rewards. There are definitely players who do that in New Genesis. They try to complete every single task daily. You can technically still give some time to do that, but it will just take mostly just like maybe an hour or something, or even lesser if you know how to actually do it very very efficiently. And in the end, you can even just log in and get the login reward and just log out if you literally are like busy in real life. So if you want to compare that to something like Tower of Fantasy is like playing a second job at home. Eh, I mean, it makes sense that the game encourages you to explore the worlds and try to get every single chest open and stuff like that. But really, after doing all that things and then realizing that the instance content is just the same old, you just can't progress certain contents because your power level is just not enough because you cannot gacha the right character. especially for a lot of free-to-play players. They can't really draw for a character unless they save up a lot of currency. And I remember that they actually removed the free currency from the pods as well from 2.0. So that means, free-to-play player literally can have enough resources to save for the best characters that they wanted for their team rotations. And it's even worse than Genshin, I heard, because Genshin Impact at least allows you to earn that daily for free. And yeah, they've been doing it for quite a long time, so it's pretty obvious which game is better now. I mean, not gonna lie, Tower of Fantasy might look like the perfect conclusion of what New Genesis could have been, making the open worlds like, having a lot of enemies rolling around, a lot of NPCs, a lot of mini kind of events happening in the open world, and some randomized events happening there. I mean, all of that is pretty cool and all, but are they necessary? I don't really think so. And usually, a lot of people also, a lot of those content creators who literally covered Tower of Fantasy from, from the conception of it global, literally just got burned out as well. And they all eventually just move on to other gacha games, which is, it's a pretty obvious sign of a gacha game losing its relevance, I guess. Not gonna lie, there's definitely still content creators on Tower of Fantasy, especially because they are still anticipating the newer contents or newer characters in the future patches. But at this point, I've heard of stories of people struggling to find other players to play with in party contents. And for MMORPG or just a self-proclaimed MMO anime RPG, it's really, really bad, especially for a game like Tower of Fantasy. In New Genesis, even if the player were to, get very, very low amounts, you can still technically play the game solo, and it'll be fine. And if you want to bring a friend or two into your party, that will be even better. And if your instance suddenly, have players leaving the instance just because of reasons, or if their internet connection is very bad, no worries. The boss will scale according to how many players are there in the room. So, in the end, NGS caters for much more, it actually is much more flexible for you to play New Genesis in comparison of something that requires a high investment of time of a game like Tower of Fantasy. So in the end, my predictions were kind of true from the start. At first, Tower of Fantasy might look like, oh wow, it's amazing. It's everything that everyone wanted, right? I mean, sure, people are still maybe hyping up Blue Protocol and hyping up other MMORPGs out there that are looking very, very good. But the worst kind of scenario I don't really want to see happening to all of the games that I'm playing, like New Genesis and Blue Protocol, is that I wish that they would have continuous luster and just don't really just lose players after the initial hype and stuff like that. New Genesis had that whole phase as well, especially on their launch day, but I mean, that is well known that the reason why it actually happened is because the quality of the content is really, really obviously very bad. But at the same time, it's actually managed to, preserve itself and managed to churn out content by content. And it's still working and it's still alive and well. If you look at the Steam charts, right, despite having just maybe 2,000 players, have you ever seen that player account amount, dip very much lower in comparison to every single day, other than the maintenance times? Not really. And I have to say that New Genesis is probably one of the most consistent player bases be playing the game every single day. It's because, players actually like to hang out in their hobbies, chatting with their friends, meeting up, having some fashion kind of a complimentary kind of a thing, or just hanging out with their friends and just chatting there. It's a very, very good AFK game, which I can't really say the same for something like Tower of Fantasy, where your internet connection is very bad, and sometimes your graphics is just have a lot of bugs, and there's hackers everywhere like that. New Genesis once have a lot of exploits, but to be honest, outside of the non-gameplay areas, it's not really noticeable, to be honest, because there is only maximum instances of like 32 players, so you can't really see a lot of those exploits going on. So New Genesis is very, very casual friendly, very, very friendly, time friendly game that I think a lot of people probably like misunderstand. It is not, I don't really think that the NGS devs wanted to make this game as a hardcore MMORPG for a lot of players to try. Instead, I actually agree that the devs should actually streamline a lot of those very, very hard to accept systems from base PSO2 and streamline them to make it simpler in New Genesis. And of course, despite how I actually agree with the devs of making the game simplified, I do wish that they also don't lose their creativity on the contents as well. Because so far, most of their contents are basically just padding for more development time on the future contents. And I know, everybody is thinking about Ultra Evolution, but really, do you really think continuous seasonal events and continuous same old recycled events is good for live service? Not really. But anyways, it's still way better than something like Halo Infinite, so I'm not gonna complain, Yeah, it's still probably much better than Overwatch 2 build as well, I guess. But, other than that, I just wanted to speak this kind of an opinion from the bottom of my heart, and I just wanted to tell everybody that why, NGS just kept its relevancy despite me having a small player base instead of like Tower of Fantasy. So, that's all, and thank you for watching to this point. Please subscribe and like my video if you like my content, and I'm gonna see you guys next time. Sayonara.